Welcome to the Mental Health Seminar. This is Nan McKay of TrailBlazers Impact. Why are we bringing you the webinar today? There are 5 important reasons. Number 1 in 5 adults will experience a diagnosable mental illness in any given year. Number 2, 80% of employees treated for mental illness report improved levels of work productivity and satisfaction. Number 3, an estimated 6 to 7% of full-time workers in the US experience major depression, costing employers an estimated $44 billion per year in lost production time. Number 4, most people feel a little nervous before a big speech or a job interview or a visit to the doctor. But in anxiety disorders, those feelings are crippling, extreme, and/or at least persistent. So number 5, COVID-19. The pandemic has turned every conceivable stressor in our lives up a notch, causing unprecedented levels of anxiety and isolation. A nationwide survey assessing the effects of the pandemic on the emotional well-being of US adults showed that 90% of respondents were experiencing related emotional distress. So let me tell you a little bit about our speaker. She has some resources for you to link to at the end of our program from our website, TrailBlazerSimpact.com, on the events page. Joy Gihana is the founder and CEO of Family Life and Beyond. She holds a bachelor's degree in legal laws and a master's degree in counseling psychology. Over the years, she has supported hundreds of clients in need of family and mental health therapy. She also teaches in the Faculty of Health Sciences at Northwest College in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. A proud Rwandan Canadian, Joy was born in Uganda, grew up in Rwanda, and has resided in Canada for the past 10 years. So Joy, why is it important to discuss mental health?
Thank you so much, Nan, for that warm welcome. And I think more than ever before, it's really very important to discuss mental health for a number of reasons. One, as you just shared some of the statistics, mental health issues, mental health distresses are prevalent. And it doesn't matter whether you are educated or not educated, whether you are on one side of the world or you live in another different country. It doesn't matter whether you're Black or white, younger or old, intellectual or not educated. At one point, most of us will struggle with a mental health issue or a mental health disorder. So it is really very important that we have these conversations. And I'm very thankful for you, Nan, that you're putting up, such a platform where we can really have honest and open conversations around mental health. Another reason is because by having these kind of conversations, we are combating the stigma that surrounds mental health at large. People that struggle from mental health issues sometimes feel extremely lonely, and sometimes it can feel like they're just, only them in that situation. But when we have conversations such as these, we kind of normalize, issues that, surround mental health. Mental health is as important or even more important than physical health, just as we access, physical, medical support from doctors and physicians. It is equally important that we really address or talk about issues that surround our mental health. Another reason is to really create a sense of community. like I said, sometimes it can feel extremely lonely. But when we destigmatize and normalize conversations around mental health, then we're creating a community. We also, like, by having these conversations, we encourage whoever is struggling with a mental health problem or a mental health disorder to, access care and support, to even know where to go for any sort of intervention or any sort of help. Also mitigating the risk of self-harm and suicide. I've worked with so many clients that, are on the verge of life and they've hit rock bottom and they feel like, giving up on life. But again, having conversations such as these, will probably prevent risks such as these. So those are some of the reasons.
Can you clarify for us the difference between distress, problems, and illness?
That is a very, very good question, Nan. Before I even clarify, I think one of the reasons why, or some of the reasons why, it's really important to have the correct language or the correct lingo around mental health is really because, again, we really want to destigmatize or combat the stigma around mental health, because when we don't know what we are talking about, sometimes it can really feel like it's foreign or it's very strange. Another reason to have the right language around mental health is that then we know how to intervene and when to intervene. So to distinguish between a mental health, a mental distress, a mental health problem, and a mental health disorder, I want to use like a pyramid. So at the bottom of the pyramid, there is a category of people that, are happy, they have no stressors in their lives, which those people are very few. So, for example, they are functioning. Business is as usual for them. They are able to go to work if they have a job. They are able to run their home businesses. They are able to show up for their families as they want to. They really feel empowered. They're able to go to school and all that. They're able to attend a program such as the business program that is running right now. So that is the first category. The second category is, so right after the first category on the pyramid, we have mental distress or mental health distress. Now, in this category, we experience everyday, these are everyday issues. For example, I'm driving to downtown to the city and I get a flat tire, or my power runs out and I'm not able to, see what I'm doing. Or another example would be, I have a presentation to do. Like, for example, when I was preparing for this presentation, I was experiencing, I was feeling nervous and some feelings of anxiety, even though I've spoken so many times, but every time I have a presentation, I get that discomfort. So those are everyday stressors that we have in life. And so every time we have some sort of mental distress, our brain will send a stress response. And all of us respond differently to stress. So for some of us, we run away, we fly, like flight. Some of us will stay and fight back. And some people will just freeze because they feel overwhelmed. However you respond, so there is no way that is better than the other. Like, we're all built differently. And because of our experiences, we tend to respond differently. But whichever way we respond, in the process of responding the way we respond to these stresses, we are building our emotional resiliency and adaptability. I have kids, and I sometimes allow them to experience some of these stresses just so they can be able to build the resilience that they need. Now, on top, right after the mental distress, we go to a mental health problem. So oftentimes we are faced with challenges in our lives, bigger challenges, bigger than just a mental distress. So some examples of a mental health problem would be going through a separation or a divorce, or moving from one country to a new country. Like, I moved from Rwanda in 2009. That's almost 12 years ago. And moving to Canada was one of the biggest change that had ever happened to me. And if there was a time that was really stressful in my life, was then. I mean, you're speaking about having to, find your feet, put your feet on the ground, trying to find a job, trying to do school. I was pregnant with my firstborn. Like, it was quite stressful. There's a whole lot of cultural, change that is happening, and culture shock. So in the process, some people may really experience a mental health problem. Another example would be, for example, you run a business and you run bankrupt because you don't have finances to, to continue moving, especially during the COVID times. We've seen so many, small scale businesses run bankrupt. So those are some of the, those are some of the examples of a mental health problem. Now, when people go through a mental health problem, they could either, access help from family and friends, or even access, support from, a professional counselor and all that. Now, at the peak of the pyramid, we have a mental health disorder. And now here, some of the examples of mental health disorders are like major depression disorder, we have bipolar, we have dementia, we have, autism and all that. Now, for you to have a mental health disorder, you need a diagnosis. So this is not something that you sit and make up. I know some people will throw words such as I'm depressed, but they've even never, had an assessment with, with a physician or a professional. Now, when we are going through a mental health disorder, this literally alters the way our brain is functioning. So, and when that is happening, people, whoever is experiencing this, they need to access evidence-based treatments, right? They need to access professional help. They need to go to a doctor or a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a psychotherapist, somebody who is really trained to support them. Now, of course, there is less people. So the higher the pyramid, there is less people at the bottom. Sorry, at the top. And also another thing to note is that we can be at each stage of the pyramid at the same time. So it's not like a continuum. So basically, for example, what I want to mean is that you could find somebody who is struggling with depression, like they've been diagnosed with depression, but at the same time are going through a divorce, and also at the same time as they were driving to work, they had a flat tire, or even though they have that diagnosis, they are able to cope with life. They are able to function. So just because I have a mental health disorder does not mean my mental health is compromised completely, right? A good mental health is not having a bad mood. Experiencing emotional distress does not necessarily mean that one has a mental health problem. So I really hope that we've gained some clarity around that.
That was very enlightening, Joy. And it makes me wonder then, can even positive events cause stress? For instance, Christmas and holidays like that?
Absolutely, 100%. I'm a witness. I mean, around the holiday season, especially when you've not been able to do what you need to do, when you're financially unable to, buy presents or, come through as you want to come through, that can be distressful. Or even for some people that do not celebrate Christmas, and maybe everywhere else they're celebrating Christmas, they could, internalize that as, are we different? Why aren't we doing the same things that other people are doing? Mm-hmm.
When you work with your clients, what are some of the symptoms and warning signs that you're looking for?
Yes, that's a fantastic question. Now, everybody is different, and the way these symptoms will manifest will quite be different. And also because we're going through, so the symptoms, for example, the symptoms of anxiety disorder are not the symptoms of depression. Or if I'm experiencing burnout and compassion fatigue, I'm going to have slightly different symptoms. But just probably to narrow it down, I'm just going to share some of the symptoms of depression. So some symptoms of depression, because that is quite common. Depression is quite common. I will start with mood. So people that struggle with depression will their mood will change. They will start to feel irritable. They will start to feel restless, like really restless and fidgety. They'll feel angry. Emotionally, their emotional well-being will also be compromised. For example, they will start to feel a void in them, feel empty, have a sense of hopelessness, feel extremely sad. Now, not everybody that is feeling sad is depressed. So these symptoms that I'm sharing with you will have to manifest themselves for at least 2 or 3 weeks or even longer, consistently, for you to start to think that you're depressed. So just because I woke up, in the morning and I feel sad does not necessarily mean that I am depressed. Behavior changes, such as loss of interest in the activities that you at one point enjoyed to do. For example, I myself, I'm an introvert, extrovert. I like to be around people. People give me energy. So if all of a sudden I start to, keep to myself and not go out and meet my family and friends, that is not a good sign. And again, it has to go for a period of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even more. Sexual interests will decrease. For some people, they'll have a reduced sexual drive, lack of sexual performance. Cognitively, the way we think may be also strained. For example, we may lack the ability to focus and concentrate. Some people will have a hard time to follow through a task, like they start but they do not finish, or they have tendencies of procrastination. Undersleeping or oversleeping. Engaging in self-harm behaviors, such as some people will cut themselves, or some people will drink alcohol, abuse alcohol, not, drink alcohol, abuse it, or start to depend on it, or even overeat. Some people will stress eat, like when you're feeling stressed, you start to eat a lot, or deny yourself food. So those are some of the signs and symptoms.
Do you have any best practices that you could share with us?
Yes, absolutely. And so, like I said, we are all different, and sometimes the way we cope could look different. But I really encourage my clients to create awareness, to really pay attention, because I think the way we behave sometimes is subconscious, and we respond almost subconsciously. We are on autopilot. So, but by creating a conscious awareness of your thoughts, really paying attention to the way you think and how that affects the way you feel and how that then affects the way you behave is key. I encourage my clients to really get into the habit of writing. Right? For example, if you you wake up every morning and really try to maybe write 3 promises that you want to keep to yourself. For example, I like to wake up and even just write something as simple as, I will drink 3 glasses of water today. The reason why you do that is, one, the brain likes to entertain things that they already know. So when you set yourself to write down that you're going to drink a glass of water or 2, the brain actually thinks that you're drinking the water. So by the time you hit the floor to go and drink your water, the brain is not as resistant as it would have been if you did not write that. But also keeping yourself accountable. For example, if you have 3 promises that you want to follow through in the day, and maybe you just followed through on 2 out of the 3 promises, then you go back and, of course, pat yourself on the back and say, good job, but also ask yourself, why is it that I was not able to follow through on number 3? What are some of the barriers? How can I tweak that, that promise, that so that I can be able to follow through the next time? I encourage my clients to get into a routine of sorts. I think there is power in having a routine in place, knowing what to do and when to do it. On my lazy days, like if I don't have a routine in place, I can literally stay in bed the whole day. But when I have a routine in place, for example, I know I'm going to talk to Nan at 11 o'clock, and at 12 o'clock, I'm going to go for a walk, and maybe 3 p.m., I'm going to make dinner. That really helps my brain to stay organized and focused. I like to encourage people to get into a self-care routine. And when I talk about self-care, really, I'm talking about holistic, physical self-care, psychological or emotional self-care, spiritual self-care, and maybe social self-care. So, for example, examples of some of physical self-care would be exercising, eating right, and eating at the right time, eating healthy. Emotional self-care is really, again, paying attention to your thoughts and how that interacts with how you feel and how you behave. Having a counselor or somebody you can talk to about the way you feel. Spiritual self-care could include meditation. Some people like to pray and just be in a quiet place. So those are some of the examples quickly. Yes.
You know, Joy, one of the things that I do, and I wonder whether this is a good thing or not, is I do self-talk when I have a big stressful thing coming up. And I'll say, I've been a public speaker for more than 40 years. And so you'd think I wouldn't have any stress, but I do right before, just like you said. And I say to myself, Nan, you're just going to do absolutely great on this. You're going to be the best you have ever been. This is going to be a piece of cake. This is going to go great. I say that kind of stuff to myself, and somehow it works.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Exactly. It's the simple things, the simple, consistent things that really make a huge difference.
Is there really a way to prevent the deterioration of mental health?
Yes, that's a very good question. Yes, there is a way. There is a way of being proactive in safeguarding our mental health well-being. Again, getting into a routine of what do I do and when do I do it. Practicing self-care. I know, especially women out there that have families, younger families, or even older families, sometimes it can be quite hard to even, set time to take care of ourselves. So really being extremely intentional to even, plan for an hour or two, in a day or a week to just take care of yourself is really key. We don't want to wait for things to really feel extremely out of whack before we really, take serious measures to really take care of our mental health. Getting into an exercising physical routine, exercise really helps us. It helps the body to actually produce hormones, feeling good hormones that will really boost not only our physical health, but also our mental health. Simple things such as just walking, taking evening walks, but you really need to be extremely intentional because if you're not, it's very easy to write yourself off. I encourage women, mothers, I like to use the analogy of a glass, right? So you see this glass? I like to drink water, and every time I drink water, the water runs out. So at one point, if I continue to drink out of this glass, I'm going to run out of water to drink. So that is true for us as women, as mothers, because we are always giving of our time, of our energy, of our emotional support. And sometimes we really forget to extend that same kindness that we extend to others to ourselves. So we need to refill our cups, our water glasses. We need to refill our gas tanks. Otherwise, we're going to be running on an empty gas tank. And of course, that is not possible. And that's why you find women are feeling extremely fatigued. They are starting to have signs of, burnout, such as lack of sleep, lack of appetite, loss of weight, and all that. So being proactive and coming up with a solid plan and being extremely intentional in terms of taking care of ourselves can help support our mental health well-being.
What about setting up little rewards for yourself during the day?
Absolutely, 100%. I think that ties in very well with the three promise. I think I talked about how I like to keep three promises every day, because every time I, keep a promise, one of those promises, I treat myself. I treat myself, to whatever. It could be a good meal. It could be, going out, with the people I like. I like to go out with my girlfriends, with my partner, and all that. Just having a good time. Yeah.
Well, that sounds great. What about case studies? It would be, I think, helpful to hear an actual story. I don't want you to mention names, of course, but just give me an example so that we can really relate to it on a case study.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll give you an example of one of my clients. I asked permission before I shared this story of them, and they were okay with it. I'm not going to mention any names for the sake of confidentiality. But I had this lady who was going through major relationship issues with their partner. They had a young family, and they were working full time, and it was really quite stressful. And because of the toxic and hostile relationship this mother was going through, they were not able to function properly at their job. So you can see how basically how the stressors in our personal lives can actually affect our ability to stay functional and to be productive, at a job, right? So this mom, because of what she was going through, because of the non-supportive partner, some partners can be quite abusive, even without really knowing that they are being abusive. And also the victim doesn't know that they're being maybe emotionally or sexually abused, right? But over the years, the stress and the distress accumulates, and before you know it, this mom is not able to function the way they would function normally, because in a normal world for this mom, they were functional, they were go-getters, they were energetic and all that. But because of what was going through, this mom found herself not even being able to complete a task, not being able to take care of the little ones. And of course, as a result, the mom is affected, the little ones are affected, because as you may know, Nan, that what we experience as adults will somehow be transferred to the people that we care about, especially the little ones. She was not able to keep her job. She was not able to show up at her job as much as she wanted to. She was not able to continue taking care of her other relationships and all that. So I would really encourage the women that are pursuing this business program to really pay attention and to take a minute and really take care of themselves, and to remember that they really, really matter. And they are the most important people in their lives, because if they do not take care of them, everything else is going to be affected: their jobs, their kids, their family life, and all that. Yes.
How has COVID heightened everything that you've worked with? And secondly, then, what suggestions do you have?
Yes, COVID is a worldwide pandemic. I don't know anybody that has not been affected in one way or another, from the little kids to to the teenagers, to the middle age, to the seniors. We have been all affected in one way or another. I like to think that we literally went to bed in one in a different world and woke up in a completely different world. And so there's been a sense of normalcy that has been ripped from us. Our sense of normal has changed, and it keeps changing. So there is grieving. people are grieving because there's been loss. For every loss, there is a grieving process. And of course, we all grieve differently. So some people are grieving the loss of their jobs. Some people are grieving the loss of their loved ones, like people have been dying. Some people are grieving the loss of, their sense of normal, really. You will find that people that are, there's been relationship roles that have changed. For example, if one partner was the one staying at home and assuming the roles of, at home, that has changed, and it can be quite stressful. I've worked with couples in the past pre-COVID, and they were complaining of not a lack of time. Now COVID hits, and all of a sudden they're overdosing on time, and they don't know how to manage the too much time they have with each other. There's been domestic violence has heightened because all of a sudden people are in each other's faces, and that can lead to, that can onset abuse, emotional abuse, or even sexual and financial abuse. So there's been a lot of changes, and anxiety, feelings of anxiety. And I'm saying that carefully, because anxiety disorder is not just because I'm feeling anxious does not mean I'm suffering from anxiety. But what is common is that we've all struggled with feelings of anxiety because we do not know when the next shoe is going to drop. We do not know when the next change is happening, right? So that has really been happening. Now, your other question was, how do we handle this, or what are some of the suggestions? I really like to say that we've been all affected, and so extending and kindness and being gracious to us does really help. Don't beat yourself up. It's really been hard, and so I really resonate. But also, I like to encourage everybody to pay attention to our thoughts, because it's not so much what is happening, to us that affects our mental health, but rather the way we are responding or what we are making of it, our perception of what is happening, right? So, for example, if we catastrophize COVID, it is definitely going to look catastrophic. But if we try to adapt and work with what we have and alter our lifestyle, that could really help. Trying to limit the amount of news and media that we consume around COVID helps, because I find that when we are on the internet and we are reading the statistics and the amount of cases, the people that are dying, that can be quite stressful. Taking a break, and really a very simple strategy that I really encourage everybody to engage in is taking deep breaths. Really, that's something that you can do anywhere and everywhere, and nobody will even know that you're doing this. So really trying to breathe in through your nose, count 1, 2, 3, and then breathe out. 1, 2, 3. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, and exhale. That is such a simple exercise but it really makes a world of difference to the brain, because every time we inhale oxygen in our brain, it helps our brain to function really better. Yes.
Joy, one of the things that I'm reading about a lot is teenage suicide in the United States. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that in the very beginning. Is there anything you can tell us about this area, or anything to watch for, or anything that can be done in this area?
Yes, yeah, that it's quite prevalent. It's not just in the US, it's in Canada, it's in Rwanda, it's everywhere. That we are finding that teenagers are self-harming, or some of them are actually, ending their lives. Now, there are very few people, or actually nobody wakes up in the morning and they decide to take their lives. I think it's a process. It's a process that one goes through and comes to a point where they feel extremely hopeless, and they really end their lives. For most people that have attempted or that have even completed, there's been underlying mental health issues. So that's why I really encourage parents to look out for some of these symptoms, like some of the symptoms that I shared. When you have a teenager that is not, their mood swings are different, they are sleeping more than normal, or they're not even sleeping, they are on the video games or gadgets, laptops, whatever, for an excessive amount of time. They're not eating, or they're drinking, engaging in self-harm behaviors. Those are some of the symptoms that maybe your teenager is not doing well. And teenagehood is such a critical time in our lives. I've been a teenager at one point. I know, Nan, you've been a teenager at one point. There's so many things that are happening around that time developmentally, right? So many changes hormonal wise. And COVID plus COVID now, it's even worse. So having the parent to understand that the teenager is already going through so much stuff, and trying to really find creative ways of building a healthy relationship with your teenager could really, really help, because some teenagers may come off as if they actually do not want to be next to you, or they want nothing to do with you, but really they are craving for that connection. But it's in the way that you approach it, it's in the way you try to connect with them, that really would make sense. Try to find things that they like to do, and maybe have that as a connecting point. You can even plan date nights, with your teenager, just so they can feel like they really, really matter to you, right? But yeah, there's a lot of that. And thanks for pointing that out.
Well, Joy, it has been a joy to be able to talk to you and have you share so many things that are so important to all of us. I also would like to thank Carol Ford and Terry Neese of the Institute for the Economic Empowerment of Women, who helped put us together and be able to bring this to you. So thank you so much, and everybody stay well. And thank you again, Joy.
Thank you, Nan. It was an absolute pleasure to hang out with you. It was really good. I loved it.